The conference room buzzes with energy as investors lean forward in their seats. My father stands at the podium, his silver hair catching the spotlight perfectly. This invention will revolutionize renewable energy storage, he announces, gesturing toward the prototype on the display table. Applause erupts. My chest tightens. That's my work. Every circuit, every calculation, every sleepless night, mine. I watch him soak in the admiration, his smile widening with each clap. My hands tremble against my lap. I can't stay silent. Dad, that's mine. My voice cracks through the noise. The room falls quiet. He turns slowly, his expression shifting from surprise to something colder. Frankie, sweetheart, you helped with research. But the real innovation? That takes experience. His voice drips with condescension. Laughter ripples through the crowd. My face burns. I'm 26 years old, holding a master's degree in engineering, and my own father just reduced me to an assistant. He continues his presentation as if I've vanished. I sit frozen, humiliation washing over me in waves. This isn't just theft. This is erasure. My mother touches my arm gently, whispering, "Don't make a scene." But inside, something hardens. I won't forget this moment. Ever. I leave the conference room before it ends, my vision blurring with angry tears. In my small office down the hall, I collapse into my chair and stare at the blueprints covering my walls. 3 years of work. 3 years of pouring my soul into solving what others called impossible. The battery system I designed can store solar energy 3 times longer than anything on the market. I did that, not him. My phone buzzes with messages from colleagues offering congratulations to him. Each notification feels like a slap. I want to scream, to storm back in there and expose him. But what would that accomplish? He's Victor Tail, the respected CEO with 30 years of industry connections. I'm his daughter, the passionate but inexperienced engineer everyone pats on the head. My mother's words echo, "Just let it go, Frankie." Let it go? How? This wasn't just professional theft. This was family betrayal, wrapped in his charming smile and delivered with applause. I close my eyes, breathing slowly. Anger won't help me now. Strategy will. If he wants to play this game, I'll learn the rules. And I'll win. 6 weeks earlier, everything felt different. I was working late in the lab, adjusting the thermal regulator on my prototype. The door creaked open, and my father walked in carrying 2 coffee cups. "Burning the midnight oil again?" he asked warmly, handing me one. I smiled, grateful for the company. "Just fine-tuning the cooling system. I think I've finally cracked the efficiency problem." His eyes lit up with interest. "Show me." For the next hour, I walked him through every detail: the modified lithium architecture, the graphene coating, the pressure algorithms I'd developed. He asked thoughtful questions, took notes, praised my ingenuity. "You're brilliant, Frankie." Truly. Those words filled me with pride. My father, the man I'd always admired, finally seeing my potential. Looking back now, I realized what I mistook for admiration was actually reconnaissance. He wasn't celebrating my genius. He was studying it, cataloging every detail, so he could claim it later. That night, I trusted him completely. That night, I handed him everything he needed to destroy me. 2 weeks before the conference, we held a small investor meeting. I presented preliminary data on the battery's performance metrics. The numbers were stunning: 87% efficiency retention after 500 cycles. One investor, Marcus Brennan, leaned forward excitedly. "If these results hold, you're looking at a complete market disruption." I nodded, about to explain the next phase of testing. But my father interrupted smoothly. "We need to be cautious about overselling before full verification." Frankie's enthusiasm sometimes outpaces practicality. The room's energy shifted. Marcus sat back, his excitement dimming. Other investors exchanged knowing glances. The young engineer getting ahead of herself, look I'd seen too many times. My jaw clenched. After the meeting, I confronted him in his office. "Why did you undercut me?" He looked up from his laptop, genuinely confused. "I was protecting you, Frankie. Investors need confidence, not eagerness. You'll understand when you have more experience." His tone was patient, almost fatherly, but something in his eyes felt off. calculating. I left his office feeling dismissed, foolish. He'd made me doubt my own competence. That should have been my first warning. At dinner that night, I sat across from my younger brother, Leo. He pushed his food around his plate, avoiding eye contact. "You okay?" I asked quietly. He glanced at our father, who was reading something on his phone. "Yeah, just tired." But later, as we cleared dishes, Leo whispered, "I heard what happened at the meeting. That wasn't fair." My heart lifted. "You think so?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Dad knows what he's doing, though. He's built this company from nothing." There was the qualifier, the retreat. Leo couldn't openly support me without risking our father's approval. I understood. Victor Tayl's praise was currency in our family. Cross him, and you became invisible. I'd watched it happen to my mother years ago when she questioned his business ethics. Now she floated through life like a ghost, nodding at his decisions, keeping peace at any cost. I looked at Leo's uncertain face and realized something crushing. I was completely alone. No one would stand with me against him. If I wanted justice, I'd have to take it myself, and I'd have to be smart about it. The betrayal crystallized one afternoon when I walked past his office. The door was slightly open and I heard his voice. "The battery technology is revolutionary. I've been developing it for 3 years and we're finally ready for market." My stomach dropped. I peered through the gap. He was on a video call with someone, another investor, probably. My daughter assisted with some calculations, but the core innovation came from my experience in the field. Assisted, calculations. My 3 years of obsessive research reduced to data entry. I backed away silently, my heart pounding. This wasn't a mistake or a miscommunication. This was calculated theft, performed with the casual confidence of someone who knew he'd get away with it. He was systematically erasing me from my own creation, telling the story so many times that even he might start believing it. I returned to my office and locked the door. Tears came, hot and furious, but beneath the hurt, something colder emerged, determination. He thought I was naive, easily manipulated, too soft to fight back. He was wrong. I just needed a plan. A careful, methodical, undeniable plan. That night, I started documenting everything. I dug through my old emails, finding every message where I described my progress, asked technical questions, solved problems. I photographed my lab notebooks, pages filled with my handwriting, dated and detailed. I backed up every file, CAD drawings, simulation results, failed experiments, breakthrough moments. I even found the original napkin sketch from 3 years ago, the moment the core concept first hit me at a coffee shop. Each piece of evidence felt like a small weapon. I organized everything chronologically, building an undeniable timeline of creation. My authorship wasn't just clear, it was overwhelming. But I couldn't just dump this evidence publicly. That would look desperate, emotional, like a child throwing a tantrum. No, I needed to be strategic. I needed the right moment, the right audience, the right leverage. As I worked past midnight, my emotions churned between rage and cold calculation. My father had taught me many things over the years. He just didn't realize he'd also taught me how ruthless people get ahead. And I was about to become very, very ruthless. 2 weeks later, our company held its annual Innovation Awards. I'd won the Junior Engineer Achievement Award 3 years running, but this year felt different. As I sat in the audience, my father took the stage to present the Founders Excellence Award. This year, I'm proud to give this honor to someone who embodies our company values: innovation, dedication, and vision. He paused dramatically. That person is me. Polite laughter. He wasn't joking. He held up a plaque featuring my battery design and explained how his leadership and technical insight had made it possible. Applause filled the room. I sat motionless, watching my creation become his trophy. Colleagues around me clapped enthusiastically, none of them knowing the truth. One person, though, caught my eye. Dr. Simone Torres, our head of research, looked uncomfortable. She'd seen me working late, had reviewed my early prototypes, had even co-signed some of my lab reports. Our eyes met across the room, and something passed between us: recognition, maybe even solidarity. After the ceremony, she approached me quietly. That was your work, wasn't it? I nodded, unable to speak. She squeezed my shoulder. Keep records, Frankie. Always keep records. She walked away before I could respond, but her words lit a fire. I wasn't alone after all. The next day, an investor named Patrick Aldridge requested a meeting. He was young, maybe mid-30s, with a reputation for backing bold technology. My father had me sit in, probably to take notes like a good assistant. But Patrick directed his questions to me. The thermal management system. How did you solve the heat dissipation problem at high charge rates? I blinked, surprised. My father started to answer, but Patrick held up a hand. I'd like to hear from Frankie, if you don't mind. I took a breath and explained the graphene lattice structure I'd designed, the cooling algorithm, the pressure release valves. Patrick's eyes lit up with each detail. He asked follow-up questions, hard, technical ones that proved he actually understood the engineering. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. For 20 minutes, I was the expert, the innovator, the mind behind the technology. Patrick finally sat back, impressed. Remarkable work, Frankie. Truly. As he left, he shook my hand firmly. I look forward to seeing where you take this. Not where the company takes this. Where I take this. That small distinction felt enormous. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered. Maybe the world would see past my father's narrative. Maybe competence could speak louder than manipulation. That evening, Dr. Torres invited me for coffee off campus. We sat in a quiet corner and she leaned forward intently. I've watched your father operate for 5 years. He's brilliant at taking credit. My chest tightened. You've seen this before? She nodded. He's subtle about it. He'll position himself near innovation, then slowly absorb it into his story. By the time anyone notices, the narrative is set. I felt sick. Why hasn't anyone called him out? She sighed. Because he's powerful, charismatic, and people want to believe him. But you have something others didn't, documented proof and genuine expertise. She pulled out her phone and showed me an email she'd sent herself 2 years ago, noting my early prototype work. I've been keeping my own records, just in case. I stared at her. Why are you helping me? Her expression hardened. Because I'm tired of watching talented women get erased. And because if we're quiet and careful, we can make sure everyone sees the truth before it's too late. We spent the next hour planning. Nothing aggressive, nothing emotional. Just strategic positioning, subtle evidence drops, and patience. I left that coffee shop feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Powerful. The following Sunday, we had family dinner. My mother served roast chicken while my father talked about his upcoming keynote speech at a major tech conference. They want me to present the battery system as the future of renewable energy, he said, cutting his meat. I gripped my fork so tightly my knuckles whitened. Leo glanced at me nervously. I wanted to explode, to flip the table, to scream the truth until the walls shook. But I forced myself to breathe slowly. Emotion was weakness in this house. Control was power. That's wonderful, Dad, I said evenly. He looked surprised by my calm tone. Good. Let him think I've accepted my place. Let him underestimate me. My mother smiled with relief, grateful for the peace. But beneath the table, my other hand clenched into a fist so tight my nails drew blood. I was learning his game. Appear compliant while quietly building an empire of evidence. Smile while sharpening the knife. He taught me well. The thought made me sick and determined in equal measure. By dessert, I'd made a decision. I would dismantle his legacy piece by piece, and he'd never see it coming. A month later, I submitted a research paper to the Journal of Renewable Energy Engineering. It was a technical breakdown of my battery's lithium architecture, dense, detailed, and published under my name alone. I timed the submission carefully, during a period when my father was traveling in Europe. The paper went through peer review in 6 weeks and was accepted with enthusiastic feedback. Groundbreaking methodology, one reviewer wrote. This researcher is clearly at the forefront of the field. When the publication went live, I shared it quietly on professional networks. No fanfare, no drama. Just a simple post. Proud to share 3 years of research on advanced energy storage. Link below. Within days, shares multiplied. Engineers and researchers I'd never met were citing my work, discussing my methodology, asking questions. My inbox filled with requests for collaboration. One message came from Dr. Helena Price, a legendary figure in renewable energy. I'd love to discuss your work further. Are you available for a call? I nearly cried reading it. This was validation the real kind, earned through competence, not stolen through manipulation. My father noticed, of course, but he dismissed it casually. Nice to see you getting published, honey. Small journals are good for building your resume. Small journals, as if the JRE wasn't one of the most respected publications in our field. His arrogance was showing, and I loved it. 2 weeks after my paper published, Energy Tech Monthly requested an interview. They wanted to feature emerging voices in renewable innovation. I accepted immediately. The interviewer, Marcus Chen, no relation to any investor, asked probing questions about my background, my inspiration, my methodology. I answered carefully, focusing on the science, the challenges, the breakthroughs. Near the end, he asked, "Your father runs the company where you work. How has that relationship influenced your development?" I smiled, choosing my words precisely. My father has taught me a lot about business, but the engineering, the core innovation that comes from countless hours alone in the lab, solving problems no one else wanted to tackle. It was diplomatic but clear. I wasn't crediting him. The article ran with the headline, "Frankie Tail, the mind behind next-gen battery tech." It featured photos of me in the lab, quotes about my research philosophy, and detailed descriptions of my invention. My father's name appeared once in a single sentence. Tail works at her father's company, where she leads advanced research initiatives. Leads, not assists, not supports. Leads. The response was immediate. LinkedIn requests flooded in. Industry leaders reached out. And slowly, quietly, the narrative began to shift. People started asking, "Who is Frankie Tail?" The answer was becoming clear. I'm the one who actually did the work. My father finally read the article 3 days after it published. I was in the lab when he stormed in. The magazine rolled in his fist. "What is this?" His voice was tight with controlled anger. I looked up calmly. "An interview about my research." "Your research?" "Frankie, you work for this company. Everything you create belongs to its creator, according to patent law." I interrupted smoothly. "And I have documentation proving every stage of development was my independent work, conducted largely outside company hours." His face reddened. "We've invested resources, equipment, which I can repay if necessary. I've kept detailed records of every company asset I used, including estimated costs." I pulled out a folder I'd prepared, sliding it across the table. He stared at it, then at me, as if seeing a stranger. The meek daughter who'd always deferred to him was gone. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, unafraid. "This is how you repay everything I've given you." His voice cracked with genuine hurt. For a moment, I almost felt guilty. Almost. "You stole my work, Dad. In front of investors, colleagues, everyone. You erased me." He had no response. He just turned and walked out, the magazine crushed in his hand. I watched him go, my heart pounding. The first real confrontation was over, and I'd won. That night, I retrieved my most important piece of evidence, the original prototype. It sat in storage, untouched since I'd built it 2 years ago. Every component was labeled, dated, and signed by me. The design bore my initials in tiny engravings along the battery casing, a habit I'd developed early, marking my creations like an artisan's paintings. I photographed everything under good lighting, documenting the serial numbers, the handwritten labels, the dated assembly logs. This wasn't just proof, it was undeniable. Physical evidence that existed before my father ever claimed involvement. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud server with timestamps, shared access with Dr. Torres and 2 lawyer friends from college. If anything happened to the physical prototype, digital copies would survive. As I worked, emotion overwhelmed me. 3 years of my life, contained in one small device. Countless failed experiments, breakthroughs at 3 a.m., moments of doubt followed by triumph. This invention was mine in every sense, intellectually, emotionally, legally. My father could deliver speeches, charm investors, play the visionary CEO. But he couldn't erase this truth. The prototype existed. The evidence existed. I existed. And soon, everyone would know. Over the next month, I began a subtle campaign. I'd have casual conversations with investors, mentioning technical details only the true inventor would know. I'd share insights on engineering forums under my verified professional account. I'd present at small conferences, building credibility outside my father's shadow. Each action was small, almost unnoticeable, but together they painted a picture. Frankie Tail is the real innovator. One investor, Patricia Vaughn, started asking my father pointed questions during meetings. What's the thermal coefficient of the graphene coating? He'd fumble, then deflect. I'd have to check the specifications. Frankie would know, Patricia would say, looking at me. And I'd answer precisely, watching his jaw tighten. Other investors noticed. Whispers started. The daughter seems to know more than the CEO. Maybe she's more involved than we thought. My father sensed it too. He became defensive in meetings, overcompensating with jargon, cutting me off when I spoke. But his desperation only made him look worse. Insecure, threatened, false. I remained calm, professional, helpful. The more he flailed, the more I shined. It was almost too easy. Almost. During Thanksgiving dinner, the tension finally erupted. My father had been drinking, his control slipping. You're trying to undermine me, he said suddenly, pointing his fork at me. The table went silent. My mother's face paled. Leo stared at his plate. I set down my wine glass carefully. I'm trying to get credit for my own work. There's a difference. I made you. His voice rose. I gave you opportunities, resources, connections, and I created something revolutionary with them. Then you stole it. That's not. The prototype is dated and signed, Dad. My lab notebooks are witnessed. My emails are time-stamped. Every investor knows I can answer technical questions you can't. I pulled a folder from my bag and slid it across the table. Inside were copies of everything: emails, photos, publications, witness statements from Dr. Torres and others. He opened it slowly, his face draining of color. If you continue claiming my work as yours, I said quietly, I will release all of this publicly. Not in anger, just as fact. And everyone will see exactly who created what. My mother gasped. Leo stared at me with something like awe. My father's hands shook as he flipped through pages. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. Real, genuine fear. Good. The following Monday, 3 investors called emergency meetings. But they didn't want to meet with my father. They wanted to meet with me. Patrick Aldridge went first. I've been doing some research, Frankie. Your technical knowledge far exceeds what I'd expect from an assistant. I smiled. That's because I'm not an assistant. I'm the inventor. He leaned back, studying me. Prove it. I spent 2 hours walking him through every development stage, showing him my documentation, answering his hardest questions. He looked stunned. Your father said he designed this. My father said a lot of things. Patrick was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Victor? Patrick Aldridge. I'm moving my investment to support Frankie's independent work. I trust you understand. He hung up before my father could respond. The next investor followed suit. Then the third. By the end of the week, half of my father's major backers had quietly shifted their support to me personally. I hadn't asked them to. I just showed them the truth. And truth, when backed by undeniable evidence, is impossible to ignore. My phone rang constantly. My father, desperate, angry, pleading. I didn't answer. I was busy preparing for the next phase. The Global Energy Innovation Summit was the industry's biggest event. My father had been invited as a keynote speaker to unveil the battery technology. But 3 days before the event, the organizers contacted me directly. Ms. Tail, we've received information suggesting you're the primary inventor. We'd like you to present instead. I agreed immediately. When my father found out, he tried to have me removed from the speaker list. But the organizers held firm. If she's the creator, she should present. That's our policy. The day of the summit, I stood backstage in a gray blazer, my presentation loaded and ready. My father waited in the audience, his face stony. Investors, journalists, and industry leaders filled the auditorium. Over 800 people. When my name was announced, applause rippled through the crowd. I walked onto that stage feeling every eye on me. For one terrifying moment, doubt crept in. Then I saw Dr. Torres in the third row, nodding encouragement. I clicked to my first slide, a photo of my original napkin sketch. 3 years ago, I had an idea I began, and I told them everything. Not with anger or drama, just with facts, passion, and undeniable expertise. By the time I finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping, then another. Soon, the entire auditorium was on their feet. I found my father in the crowd. He sat motionless, his face pale. Our eyes met, and in that moment he knew I'd won. After my presentation, I was swarmed by journalists, investors, and fellow engineers. Everyone wanted to talk, to ask questions, to offer partnerships. A board member from a major energy corporation pulled me aside. I need to ask you something directly. Did your father contribute to this invention at all? I considered the question carefully. He provided encouragement early on and company resources. But the design, engineering, and innovation, that was entirely my work. She nodded slowly, because he's been telling a very different story to investors. I know. She looked uncomfortable. We invested $50 million based on his presentation. If he misrepresented the technology's origins. She didn't finish, but the implication was clear. Legal trouble, reputational damage, financial consequences. Within hours, 3 board members confronted my father privately. I wasn't there, but Leo told me what happened. They questioned his claims, asked for documentation, demanded technical explanations he couldn't provide. He tried to deflect, to charm, to manipulate, all his usual tactics. But this time they didn't work. Because this time, I'd already shown them the truth. By evening, rumors spread through the summit. Victor Tail had exaggerated his role, maybe even lied. The whispers turned to certainty. His credibility cracked like glass, and I watched it happen with calm satisfaction. One of my father's oldest allies, an investor named Harrison Steele, approached me at the summit's closing reception. Your father and I built this company together 20 years ago, he said quietly. I considered him family. And yet he stole from his own daughter, I replied. Harrison looked pained. I didn't know. I believed him when he said you assisted with research. Because he's convincing. That's his gift, making people believe his version of reality. Harrison was quiet for a moment. What do you want, Frankie? The question surprised me. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? Recognition? All of it felt too simple. I want the truth to be known. I want my work to be mine. And I want to build something real, without lies or manipulation. He nodded slowly. If you start your own company, I'd like to invest. Not in your father's name, in yours. Tears pricked my eyes. Thank you. As Harrison walked away, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about exposing my father anymore. It was about building a future where people like me, young, female, underestimated, could succeed without being erased. That future started now. 2 weeks after the summit, I officially launched my own company, Tail Tech Innovations. The name was deliberate, keeping Tail, but making it mine. Dr. Torres joined as Chief Research Officer. Patrick Aldridge led the investment round. We secured $8 million in initial funding based solely on my reputation and the battery technology's potential. The launch event was small but meaningful. 50 people gathered in a modest conference room. Investors, engineers, journalists, supporters. I stood at the front, no fancy podium or dramatic lighting. Just me and my prototype. 3 years ago, I started solving a problem everyone said was impossible. I began. Today, I'm building a company based on one principle. Innovation belongs to its creator. Always. The applause was genuine, warm. Several attendees wiped their eyes. This wasn't just a business launch. It was validation, justice, a new beginning. My father didn't attend. But late that night, he sent a text. I'm proud of you. I stared at those 4 words for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe them, but I knew better. He wasn't proud, he was defeated. And he was trying one last manipulation, guilt. I deleted the message without responding. Meanwhile, my father's world crumbled. 3 major investors pulled out of his company, citing concerns about leadership integrity. The board forced him to issue a public statement acknowledging my role in the battery's development. His keynote invitations dried up. Journalists started asking hard questions about his past claims. One investigation revealed he'd done similar things before, taking credit for junior engineers' work, positioning himself as the visionary while others did the real innovation. The pattern was undeniable. His reputation, built over 30 years, collapsed in weeks. I watched it happen with mixed emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also sadness. This was my father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who attended my science fairs, who once made me feel capable and loved. How had we arrived here? One evening, my mother called. He's devastated, Frankie. Can't you forgive him? He stole 3 years of my life, Mom. He humiliated me publicly. He tried to erase me from my own creation. She was quiet. I know, but he's still your father. A father who treated me like a tool instead of a daughter. I hung up, my hand shaking. Forgiveness felt impossible right now. Maybe one day, years from now, we'd find some peace. But not today. Today, I was still healing from the betrayal. 6 months later, Tech Innovations secured our first major contract. A partnership with a European energy consortium to produce batteries for their renewable grid. The deal was worth $40 million over 3 years. We moved into a real office, hired 15 employees, and began scaling production. I stood in our lab one morning, watching engineers assemble prototypes, and felt overwhelming pride. This was real. No lies, no stolen credit, no manipulation. Just hard work, talent, and integrity. Dr. Torres walked up beside me. How does it feel? Surreal, I admitted. Like I'm waiting for someone to take it away. She squeezed my shoulder. No one can take it this time. It's yours. My phone buzzed with a message from Leo. Saw the news about your contract. You did it, sis. You really did it. I smiled, tears threatening. Leo had slowly distanced himself from our father, carving his own path. Watching him find courage inspired me. That evening, reporters asked for my comment on my father's company losing another major client. I kept it brief. I wished them well. My focus is on building the future, not dwelling on the past. It was diplomatic, mature, and true. I'd won everything I needed to win. Now it was time to move forward. Today, 2 years later, Tech Innovations employs 70 people and has partnerships across 4 continents. My battery technology powers renewable grids, electric vehicles, and emergency systems worldwide. I've been featured in Time Magazine's Top Innovators Under 30 and spoken at conferences from Silicon Valley to Singapore. My father's company still exists, but barely. He stepped down as CEO last year, replaced by new leadership trying to rebuild trust. We haven't spoken in 18 months. Sometimes I miss him, or rather, I miss who I thought he was. But I don't regret my choices. I stood up for myself when no one else would. I fought for my work, my identity, my future. And I won. Not through cruelty or revenge, but through truth, competence, and patience. Looking back at that conference room where he first stole my work, I barely recognized the person I was. Scared, uncertain, powerless. Now, I understand something crucial. Real power isn't stolen or claimed. It's earned, built, and protected. My father tried to erase my legacy. Instead, I created one he'll never touch. And that's the sweetest victory of all.